Welcome to Perennia's first webinar of the Preparing for Retail Success series, provided to you by our Agri-Food Funding Program. Today's topic will be Business Planning 101, Part 1. My name is Emily Page, and I'm a food scientist with Perennia Food and Agriculture. We offer a wide array of services to support Nova Scotia's agriculture and seafood sectors, such as food safety, agricultural extension, mobile wine bottling, and analytical testing of cannabis, foods, and beverages. At the Perennia Food and Beverage Innovation Center, we work with clients on product development, process improvement, nutritional labeling, and shelf life determination. Our guest presenter today is Gary Morton of Morton Horticultural Associates. Gary has worked in agriculture for 40 years, helping farms and businesses across Canada find new value, success, and profit from what they do. Lastly, just some quick Zoom housekeeping notes. If you have a question during the session, please use the Q&A button, which is located at the bottom of your Zoom window, and we'll have some time for questions at the end and can answer them at any point, so submit them when you have them. And with that, I'll pass it off to you, Gary.
Thank you, Emily, and I'm very glad to be here this afternoon on this nice sunny day in the part of Nova Scotia that I'm in anyway, and also at the beginning of 2021, where a lot of people maybe are having some tough times, and also some people may be finding some new opportunity with things going on. So it's a good time to look at planning, and planning can be a big part of your success going forward in the next year. So I really congratulate everybody for being here, looking at some planning and moving forward. I'd like to first just ask this question to you, and I want you to just think about it more than anything, but what business planning challenges are you facing? And if there's any ones that are really important to you, I guess you can put in the chat box and we can look at when we get to the questions. But it's important to think about the challenges that you face when you're planning. I plan a lot, and I also face a lot of challenges when you're doing it. I mean, sometimes it's your own challenges of procrastination and issues that are like that, but there's also challenges of getting information and whether I know if I've got the right kind of information, or where I can get the information, or how I can do something. So if you could put those in the chat box or the question box, those would be really great, and we'll have a look at them in a little bit. I'm going to throw out this statement right at the very beginning, and this is really from probably 40 years of experience of working with people, preparing probably hundreds of business plans over the years, or helping them prepare business plans. And I found that if you don't have a plan for your business, then your business becomes part of someone else's plan. And if you think about that, like, who would those other people be, or who would have that plan that you're falling into? If you don't have your own plan for what you want out of your business, you're going to become part of your customer or your buyer's plan, or your supplier's plan, or maybe your partner or investor's plan, or your staff's plan. Everybody will sort of gravitate to every business gravitates to some kind of plan if there isn't one designed for it. So the plan lays out direction, it gets you going forward, and you don't really want to be part of someone else's plan. So it's a really key reason to be looking at planning. I had the great opportunity years ago to attend a workshop with Dr. Stephen Covey of the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. And he's a psychologist that studies how people operate and planning and all those success, I guess, is really what he's looking at. And he had this matrix that I always remember and think about, and I want to share it with you here today. And the matrix has across the top the 2 boxes, it's urgent and not urgent, and up the side the 2 labels are not important, important. And he will basically tell you that, or he did in his workshop, that when you work on the non-important things and you focus on those, which is where a lot of people gravitate to interruptions and phone calls and mails and pressing matters and trivia and a lot of those other things, then what it does is it creates urgency, which means you're operating in that important and urgent box all the time, which means you have crises and pressing problems and deadlines, and you're always under pressure in there. His suggestion was that you work in the the important and not urgent box, which means you're doing preparation, you're planning, you're doing prevention, you're clarifying your values of where the business is going, you're building relationships, and you're empowering the people that you work with. And those are the things that release you and free you in the business away from those crises and problems that maybe a lot of you experience. And it's no fun when you have crises and problems that you're dealing with all the time. And the more planning that you can do, the more likely that you're going to reduce those instances. There's some old sayings that, you know, every minute you spend planning saves you 20 in time or problems and crises out there. So there's lots of different things that we could look at, but I just wanted to point out that if you operate where you're planning, you actually will create a lot less stress within your business. Based on 101 startups, this post-mortem by CB Insights, and this is just the top 7 of these 20, but I want to go through them quickly. And these are reasons for startups to fail. And the first one at 42% is no market need. So that's kind of interesting when you think about it. People have gone through and developed a business or startup, and there turns out to be no market need for it, which means the market research wasn't really done very well. They ran out of cash. They didn't plan their finances well enough to know how it's going to work. They don't have the right team. They didn't plan to put the right people together to get to where they need to go. They get out-competed, which means that they didn't research out the competition well enough to understand that. Pricing and costing issues means the cost of production wasn't well thought out. User-unfriendly products means that there wasn't a lot of time spent validating that product with the consumer, and not having the proper business model for your product. So if you think about these 7 issues here, all of these, with good planning, you could probably reduce or maybe even eliminate in most cases. So it's another reason for planning here. And everyone struggles planning for a future that does not yet exist. I mean, really with planning, you know, we're building on the past, what we learned in the past. We're taking what we know in the present, and we're putting the best guess out for the future. Another challenge that I've experienced, and I guess I've watched businesses over the years, is that a lot of businesses will say, well, I'm really good at multitasking. I can do all these kind of things. But in reality, a business is juggling many different things. Like you're talking, juggling business things and customer things and product things and marketing things and sales things and things about the entrepreneur. And you know, you're trying to do so many different things in the business. And when you start up, you have a lot of energy, and maybe you can handle a lot of these things. Your business isn't too big and hasn't grown too much yet. But I can tell you, as your business scales and grows, these problems just get worse and worse. And what planning will do for you is to try to organize these things into some structures. We're going to go into this more in the workshop next week, or the webinar next week, and go into detail of all these different kinds of plans. But what the plan does is it organizes the thinking in the business, and it allows you to be able to delegate some of these things off to other people so that you have less stress and you can focus on the things that are really important. A plan basically maps out a vision for the future. A plan gives, gets everyone moving in the same direction. So you get everyone in your team and everyone in your business all thinking about the same things and moving in the same direction. And it identifies the necessary resources that you're going to need to be successful at what you do. And the big thing, I think, is solving problems in advance. Like if you can figure out what some of these problems are going to be and you solve them before it happens, that just saves so much stress and takes so much pressure off you as you're going forward. Planning also sets goals and objectives, and it's the tool that you're going to use to measure your progress. I mean, you don't want to go do a whole bunch of activity, but not really know when you get there, or not know if you're progressing forward and achieving good results. Now, I've heard lots of planning excuses over the years, and I don't think any of them really hold water, as far as I can see anyway. You'll hear from people planning's too much work. Well, it's a fair bit of work, but if you think about what your business is worth and what it means to you. A little bit of planning is probably not a whole lot of work in comparison to all the other work that's going on in your business. So a little bit of planning to make things work smoothly is important. My business is moving too fast, so once I make that plan, it's out of date. Well, that's true, but a business or a plan is really a dynamic document, and it's setting out the goals of where you want to go, and nobody's going to get there exactly how you planned. It's going to move and change, and there's going to be tacking back and forth as you go. So, that's not really a good excuse. Like, you need to find the right tools to help you plan quickly and be effective. Say no one reads the plan. Well, probably no one reads the plan because maybe it's either too complicated, or it's not simple enough for people to read, or it's not shared with people and that they know where they're going and what they can do with it. It's only useful to get money. Well, lots of times people use plans to get money, whether it's investors or loans, but plans are I hope you'll see as we go forward, there's a lot more to it than that. And the plan is in my head. Well, if it's in your head, it's not getting shared with the rest of your team. So you're going to have more stress all the time trying to figure things out. And you're probably going to lose people because they don't see where they fit in the plan. I mean, one of the biggest reasons people leave a business is because they don't see where they fit in the plan and they're not involved in the planning. So it's important excuses to consider. But I want to point out that I think planning helps you achieve the golden three. And if you've taken other workshops from me, you'll see that I focus on this a little bit. And I'm not talking about gold in a capitalistic sense. I'm talking about gold in an important sense here. Gold is you need a cash flow to earn a good living for your family and business. So if you don't plan to make that happen, it rarely happens. You can't hope that you're going to have a good cash flow. You need to have a good plan that there's going to be a cash flow. The gold watch, you need money to be able to put away for your retirement. Again, if you don't have a good plan for making this happen, or you don't have a plan to put some money away all the time, it's not going to happen and you're not going to get there. Your gold mine, and I call this the gold mine it's accumulating your assets and developing assets and positioning your business to sell or pass on at some point in the future. And no matter what your business is, like, you're probably not going to keep it forever. You're going to have either the next generation come along and take it over, or you're going to sell it to somebody. But you want to be able to plan to develop those assets so the business is worth as much as possible when you go to sell it. And part of that is planning to have your business operate really good. The most valuable business when you go to sell one is the one that operates without the owner's daily involvement in the business. So that means you're building a team of people, you have a good plan, you're sharing the plan with the team, and the team's making it work for you. If any of you are old enough to remember Maxwell Smart and Agent 86 in the 1960s TV series, Get Smart, I used to watch it when I was a young boy and really thought it was good and funny, but Maxwell Smart always used to go, missed it by that much. And that was what he'd say when he failed or he didn't achieve what he was supposed to, or goofed up or fouled up. And missed it by that much is kind of a powerful statement when you start to think about it. And it's really important when you're thinking about planning. And I'm going to share something with you here. And it's a sober thought. And lots of times when people are starting out or planning or whatever, they're not thinking about what happens if you aren't successful. And I've been through this with a number of people. I've experienced some of it myself over the times. And it's not fun. It is not a situation you want to be in. And planning will probably help reduce the risk of these kind of things happening. If you're not successful, the best case scenario is you lose your business, you lose your livelihood at that time, and then you get to go on and do something else. But the worst case scenario is that you lose your business, your livelihood, your home, your savings, your relationships, and your self-esteem. And you may never recover from some of this in most cases. So these are sober thoughts you need to think about in planning is, I want to be successful. I need to plan to be successful. And I don't want these kind of things to happen to me. Why I personally believe in planning and again, this comes from years of experience of working with people and seeing all these different things, is that there's no two businesses I've ever seen have the same vision. Like, everybody has a slightly different vision of what they're trying to achieve. There's no two businesses that have the same champions or staff. Like, every business has someone in there that's a different kind of driver. Some are more aggressive than others, and some staff are a lot better than others. No two businesses have the same assets and resources to work with. No two businesses are actually in the same business environment. Each environment is a little bit different. No two businesses have the same cost of production. It's interesting, even identical businesses in the same industry have vastly different cost of production. I mean, they have different investments and different mortgages and all these kind of things, costs. And no two really have the same opportunity because everybody has a unique environment. So that's why I really believe in planning. I think these are the things that planning helps people, get straight and basically helps people make these things competitive advantages. There's no one generic plan that fits all. And that's why it's important to plan. You have to find your own plan that works for you. Even a poor plan is better than no plan. And I know, people think that they don't need to be planning. They do. And that poor plan is like I said, it's better than no plan at all. Successful businesses have a plan. No matter what people tell you, every business that I've seen successful over the years has some kind of plan. It may not always be the formal business plan made up all the time or whatever, but they have a plan. They have it usually written down in some format, and they use it as a guide and a measuring stick going into the future. This is a friend of mine, an associate for a lot of years, Alan Stretch, he's the CEO of the Grandview Group in Elderbank, Nova Scotia, and they started off as a small dairy farm a generation or so ago and leveraged that off into 5 or 6 really progressive businesses. And Alan will tell you, if your idea doesn't work on paper, then it won't work in real life, and you just save yourself a whole lot of time and money. And I think that's a really important statement, is that the time you do spend planning is going to save you money. And when you do it on paper and it doesn't work, then you're saving yourself a lot of energy, time, and money. So I want you to join me in the next little while, and we're going to peel back. The window here, the curtain on business planning, and go a little bit deeper on it. So what planning does. One of the amazing things that I think is that planning expands your world. A big mistake a lot of people make is that they think that their world is the world. So they get stuck up on their product or their business, and they don't really go out and look at what's going on in the rest of the world. And it's really important that you, when you have a new product, or if you have existing products, that you're constantly looking at what's going on in the world out there, because you can get very insulated in your own thinking, in your own world, and you can get sideswiped by a lot of things if you're not careful. So there's kind of some bubbles here that you need to look at. Like, what you think you know is kind of the bubble you usually operate in. And that's usually the bubble of people that you're around and you associate with and you work with. And I really suggest that you try to get out of this bubble as much as you can. Like, go to different things, do different things, read different things, watch different TV shows, so that you can actually get out of that bubble a little bit. And that kind of moves you up to what you don't know. Like, because you pretty much know that there's a bubble out there. There's a whole bunch of things I don't really know, but I have to learn what those are. And you sort of break one bubble, you go into the next bubble, and you can't really go back to the old bubble anymore once you start to learn things. So it's kind of a real growth and a learning experience as you do this. But the big one that's really important to get out to is to expand your world out to what you don't know. And, there's lots of times you don't know what you don't know, I guess, is what it comes down to. So those are the things where the opportunities are. Those are also the things where the threats are that could maybe swipe your business a little bit. And if you've got yourself in a process of planning and able to look at these things a little bit closer, then that's what the planning process does. It expands your world. It forces you to go out and look at things, look at that business environment that you're operating in, and think about it really closely. Now, I talked about sharing the vision, and an important aspect of a plan, no matter what that plan is to be able to share that vision with, you may want to share it with investors. You need to share that with your lenders. You're going to need to share that with your staff. If you want your staff to all stay and work with you and be on the same team and be going in the same direction and take the stress off you, then they need to know what you're trying to achieve. And when you put it out in plans, then people can see what it is and they don't have to ask you at every step along the way. And it really helps you grow your business. This is where you can delegate so easily when you have a good plan, is because you can share aspects of the plan with people and you can ask them to do it for you. If you don't have a plan and it's just locked in your head, I'm going to say that it's going to limit your growth. It's going to limit your business to what you can do. And I see a lot of people burn out at that point. Thinking about the finances of your business, planning forces you to look at all the details and to operate efficiently. One of the things that I see is that people focus a lot on, through plans, trying to get money. And sometimes they get a lot of money, and lots of times a lot of money is bad for people because they spend too much money. They don't bootstrap as much. Sometimes I find that people that have less money or have a little bit more difficulty getting money, they bootstrap and they figure out their way to get to that where they need to go with less resources. It also reduces some of the risks sometimes and all those things. And my little story here on this one is the frugal grandma, and I use my grandma as an example. She was Scottish on all sides and very frugal lady. And the story that used to go was that she was very, very frugal at getting everything out of a nickel. And she would squeeze the nickel, the story goes, so tight when someone was trying to take it out of her hand that she could make that beaver's tail flap. And it's one of those things to think about, and think about that metaphor in that when I'm spending money in my business, or when I'm growing my business or developing my business, am I getting all the value out of this that I possibly can? Am I spending too much? It's not that businesses can't be profitable and go bankrupt. Businesses need cash flow. They need to have a really solid, good cash flow. And that's what makes business successful, because you can get through an awful lot of things if the money's flowing. But if you don't have money flowing and you're not getting good value for the money that you're spending, then it's a challenge. And planning can help you overcome that. Here's another metaphor, the number of sandwiches. How many sandwiches do you need to sell each day to keep your lights on, pay your staff, your bills, cover your overhead, and pay yourself a profit? And I ask this to people in the food business all the time. And it's interesting that some people know exactly how many sandwiches or meals that they have to sell every day to make it work. And there's a measure, there's a tool, there's a goal that they're setting for themselves. And that's one that'll take them on the path to success. But you'll also be surprised at how many people don't know how many sandwiches they have to sell to keep the lights on and the business going and to make themselves a profit. And that, again, is what, when you start to go through the planning exercises, those are the things that help you figure out, this is what I need to do. And it sets out those goals. And it's a measuring stick. It's a tool. You can share it with your staff that, we have to sell this many products every day, or we can't make this work. And once you set the goals out in front of people, you'll be surprised at how many will pick up the stick and help you achieve those goals. Getting the important stuff on your radar screen. Planning helps you look at that environment, like I mentioned earlier about expanding your world, but what are the things that are the real threats to you? What are the things that could sideswipe you or blindside you when you're not thinking about it? And how can planning is where you're going to create some contingencies when things go bad or things go wrong, or what could go wrong in the process. One of the main things that you're going to have use planning for is, I've got to get from where I am today. I'm at, say, you're here, and I want to get to be somewhere else. And there's a transition that has to happen to get there. You're just not going to automatically end up there. We just don't magically start our business and then boom, we hit the goal that's at the other end. There's a whole bunch of steps that you're taking as you're transitioning to that level that you're trying to achieve, or that vision that you're trying to achieve out there. And you're trying to get somewhere special for your business, but there's all these things along the way that are, there are walls you have to overcome. There's stepping stones you have to get past, and you're going to fall off these stairs sometimes, and you have to be able to get yourself back up. And the plan is where you get yourself back on track, and you set some milestones so that okay, by January, by the end of my first quarter, I've got to get to this point. By the end of my second quarter, I've got to get to the next point. By the end of the third quarter, I've got to be here. And that's going to make sure that by the end of the year that I get to where I need to be. There's nothing worse than running your business and just hoping that I'm going to get the sales that I want, or I'm going to get where I want to, and waiting for the end of the year to get your information back from the accountant and find out, oh, I did good or I didn't do so good. Planning helps you look at each one of these steps as you're moving forward and ensure that you're making money as you're going forward. If you know by the end of quarter one, that things aren't working, then you can change it for the second quarter. And if you know things aren't working good up to that point, you keep changing it. And part of this is always about changing to make things work. You're trying something, you're testing, you're getting feedback, and then you're moving forward. Another important thing as a business is that you're trying to increase the value all the time, whether it's the value of your product or your business. And in this diagram, you can look at there, you see value down one axis and returns up the other one. But if your business is a commodity product, over time, the choice that you really have is to increase production if you want to make more money, because commodity products, the value of those, the price is always being squeezed in most cases, and there's a lot of pressure, there's a lot of competition out there. So if you move, your plan helps you move to differentiate your products or add value or experiences that are going to return more money for your business, then those are the kind of things that the plan will help you increase the value of your business and move it forward. A plan also helps you get the key questions in the right order. And most of us, if we start, we're gonna look at what are we producing. Most people are focused on a product. This is what I do. This is what I want to do. But they kind of forget that you got to build a business around that whole thing as well, or the products are going to change over time. So, you want a business that's nice and strong to keep carrying you through the whole thing. So that's why we start with why in the whole thing. We don't start with what the product is. We start with, why are we doing this? Why are we in this business? What are we trying to achieve? And then you look at, who are you doing this for? Who's the customer? Who are we trying to target? Who are we trying to serve here? And then we think about, how are we going to do it? Can we afford to do this? Can we put the infrastructure together to make it work? For example, if I'm producing a product, can I produce it cheap enough so that I can actually be competitive in the marketplace? And that really helps you determine what you're going to be producing. So the planning process forces you to look at the why, look at the who, look at how you're going to do it, and then what you're going to do to be successful. So planning is not about a document. It's really a learning process about what you're going to learn about your business and your products as you go. Now, we usually do create some kind of document when you're planning, but the document is not really useful if you don't use it or keep updating it. But the learning process is pretty valuable. And that is sort of why I've learned over the years that I don't really suggest that you hire somebody, probably shoot myself in the foot here sometime, to do my business plan. What I suggest is you hire somebody to help you with your business plan. Because if you hire somebody just to do your business plan, then you really are never going to use it as you should as a document to help you move your business forward. Planning documents are dynamic. They're always changing. Once you achieve the goals of your plan, then it's time for another plan and you have to keep moving forward. It's a constant learning process that you're going through. So this brings us to, what type of plan do I need? So I've talked a lot about the need for planning, and I hope from all this you've gathered that planning is a good idea and I need to do it for my business. But what type of planning can I do? Because you're probably going to say, well, I don't want to do a big plan right now, or I haven't got the time or whatever. But there's a tool out there that I think can fit just about everybody's need, and I'm going to go over those in the next few minutes here. So there's a strategic plan, and that's one that we'll go into in a bit more detail. There's the traditional business plan that probably most people are aware of, and that one's that's the one that you typically see when you go to get a loan, or investors, they're asking you to prepare that plan. There's the lean canvas plan, and there's the envelope plan, or the back of the envelope plan. So before we sort of look at those, I'd like to share with you the Sigmoid Curve. And the Sigmoid Curve is kind of just a curve to show the growth and development and innovation. It captures kind of how a business progresses and grows over time. And if we look at the startup plan, like you've got a plan when you're starting up. Like I'm going to say most of you need to get I've had to get a plan. Everybody's probably suggesting you put a plan together, and it's based on what you know at the time and how you're going to start out. And as your business evolves, usually, for example, you don't just jump on starting a business and you go right to success over time. There's a fair bit of investment. There's time you have to spend. Sometimes you're putting a lot into it before you actually get to break even and get on the really good growth path. So if in that part of the process, if it's not working really well for you, your startup plan, then you need a new plan. And you're going to, as I mentioned, it's dynamic. You're going to redo your plan because you've learned a whole bunch of new things as you've gone through that process. And that dip when you start off and you get your business turned around back up going forward, or you get to the point where you're getting some traction with things, you're getting tractions in the marketplace, and you're starting to get sales and you're going forward. You are always learning new things as you go forward. So at each stage, you're going to need a new plan. Once you get to break even, you probably find that, well, I've learned a whole bunch of new things I didn't know before. I probably need a new plan. I need to revise my plan. And then as businesses, from the startup and they get to break even and then they have a nice growth curve, then they reach a point where they do start to decline. And this is where basically you're getting comfortable, or the marketplace is getting competitive, and what your competitive advantage was doesn't work as well quite anymore. So you need a new plan to move forward. So, and the example I could kind of give here was, and it's something that's you're all pretty familiar with, is laundry soap. Like you'll see, it's for example, Tide. Once it gets to a certain point, you'll see every year they introduce something new and improved. Ultra Tide. It has a fabric softener in it or something like that. That's kind of the new plan to get new growth and to go forward to the next level. And I think from this, you can see that there's a constant planning need, and there's always things going on in your business, and there's going to be different plans you need. And that's why we're talking about some of these ones today. Key questions when you're planning here is, who are you writing the plan for? Is it for you to just take your business through the next year into the next level? Or is this plan for a lender? Or is it for an investor? Because you want the plan to achieve what you need it to do. So you need to write the plan a little bit geared to each one of these needs that you're going to have. And then you also have to think about, what do you want the readers to do? It's interesting how I've read lots of business plans over the years, and I kind of go back and scratch my head and go, like, what are they asking for out of this? You need to be very clear for people about what you want them to do. And think about, what does planning success look like for you as you're starting into this process? You need a plan when you're making changes to your business, when you're creating a common vision within your staff and your organization, or your partners and your shareholders, or your board of directors. When you need to improve communication within the business, a plan is very effective. When you're borrowing money, you're probably going to need a plan because they're going to ask for it. When you're attracting investors, they're going to want to see the plan. When you're cash flow modeling, you need a plan to model out that cash flow for the year so that you can make sure that you have that gold coming in to fund the business and fund your retirement and to build those assets. And you need a plan to measure and benchmark performance. So it's very motivational when you know that you're reaching these different points. And I've seen with planning with a lot of firms, it's really neat at the end of the year. They'll get together and they'll start to go through their plan and they'll check it off. I did this, I did this, I did this, I did this. And now it's time for a new plan so that I can check these off. And you're progressing and you're moving forward. And that's a motivational aspect for anybody with a business. And then scaling and growing your business. Once you get to a point where you got to grow your business bigger and make it better, you're going to need a plan to get to that level as well. So strategic visions, missions, key goals, and objectives in the plan, and they're all interconnected. And I want to just share with you this for a second here, is when you have a strategic vision of where you want your business to go, then that helps define the mission that you're going to, mission statement, or how you're going to do your business, what you're going to do, why you're going to do it, who you're going to do it for. Then your key goals and objectives come out of, they're set so that you can achieve that mission that you're set for your business. And then the plan is really the action plan of how you're going to get those key goals and objectives achieved. But if you achieve your plan and you get successful in your plan, then you're going to achieve your goals and objectives, you're going to achieve your mission, and you're ultimately going to achieve the vision of what your business is trying to aspire to and achieve. The strategic plan. Let's look at it. And I have a template of a little strategic plan that Emily's going to send to you after this session. And it'll help, it sets out a little format of if you want to create a little strategic plan for yourself. But the strategic plan is really, again, looking at that, why are we in business? Who are we serving? What do we do? And how do we do it? And it's the umbrella plan. It's the big picture of where you're going. It's the oversight plan. It's the long game plan of this is where we need to get in 3 to 5 years, if you can think out that far. It defines that vision that you want to achieve or aspire to, and it sets the big goals that you have to do or achieve, or the objectives that have to be there. And it also starts to put some accountability and timelines and an action plan into things to make sure that it's going to get done. Now, compared to the strategic plan, we'll look at the traditional business plan. And also, I have a little guide that Emily's going to send out to you as well here, which I have for all these things. And it'll help you go through a bit of the planning process. It's not a full-scale template because there's so many of those available out in the marketplace. Just Google them online and you can find them. And every plan is a little bit different, so you've got to find something that works for you. But primarily, the traditional business plan has the contents are the executive summary, a background, the desired outcome. There's a product plan, an operational plan, a human resource plan, a customer plan, a marketing plan, sales plan, financial plan. But the traditional business plan is usually a fair bit of detail, a fair bit of work, and it takes a fair bit of time to do. Now, lenders and investors usually ask for it because they want the detail. They want to know about the business. They want to know these things before they make their investment into your business. So there's, the scope of a traditional business plan is usually like 1 year to 3 at the most, because things change so much and it's basically you learn stuff as you're going along. But the traditional business plan is one that you're probably going to create as your business gets a little bit more mature, or if people are asking for it, the lenders, investors, and all those kind of things. And one of the things that I guess has been neat that's been evolved over the last number of years has been the lean canvas. And Eric Ries has, of the Lean Canvas book, has popularized this, and it's basically putting things down on one page, and it's starting to make things connect. All the things connect together. It looks at the key customer segments that you're going to serve. Like, what are the cohorts, the group of people? Like, who is the customer? And it's going to allow you to sort of focus down and get away from some of these. My customer is everybody, every female that's out there, or every male that's out there, or there's 19 to 35-year-olds. Like, you really need to focus these customer segments down as fine and close and detailed as you can. But this Lean Canvas plan, it kind of relates everything all together in one page. And I find people really like this, and they find it useful. And it's very good for a business that's changing fast, or a startup business where a lot of things are happening really quickly. Because when you're doing that traditional business plan that we looked at, if you put a lot of effort and work into those things, a lot of those things that we're talking about there, you don't even know yet. They're guesses. So, you can put a lot of effort into something that you're kind of just guessing, and then it's going to change really quickly. So if things are changing quickly for you, the Lean Canvas works quite well. So I'm just going to go through. There's customer relationships that you think about in this. You put down the market channels. These are the channels that I'm going to sell my product through. The value proposition, it sort of focuses you on what's the value or the key competitive advantage for my product in the marketplace. Then looking at the key activities that I need to do, or the key actions that I need to take place to make my business successful. What are the key resources that I need? The people, the infrastructure, all those kind of things. What do I need to make it happen? And then who are the key partners that are going to make me successful and help me get my product to where it needs to be into the future? What are the cost structures that I have to invest in? And then what are the revenue streams that are going to make the money come back in, and so that I can make sure that my costs are covered and that there's a little bit of profit left for me in the end. So the Lean Canvas can be a really powerful tool. Again, I have a sample little diagram and model and some helpful hints in the handouts that are going to be emailed out to you. But it's something to really consider. Now, it's really just, in my mind, it's the back of the envelope plan that a lot of people have used over the years. And I'm not going to discount the back of the envelope plan. I think it has a lot of value because people sit down, whether it's having a coffee or when they're thinking and when their mind is off of things, and they just come up with ideas of what they're going to do with their business. And the Lean Canvas is kind of a more advanced back of the envelope plan. And if I was to say how these sort of would naturally flow, I would say that it would probably flow from the back of the envelope to the Lean Canvas kind of model, to the traditional business plan. And then, the strategic plan is when you're starting to, your business is, strategic plan kind of encompasses everything. It's all part of all these plans. And it's really the big picture thing that you're looking at. And it's worth at the very beginning of your planning to sit down and do that strategic plan. Just think about, this is where I'm going. This is where I want my business to do. These are the key things I have to achieve in the next 3 years. And if I was looking back 3 years from now, at my business, what would success look like? And those are the kind of things that strategic planning can do for you. But the back of the envelope is a great place to start. And if you're not into planning, start crafting out your ideas and things on the back of that envelope. So just to recap here, the strategic plan is the big picture plan. It's the one that you want to have identify what you aspire to, where you want to be in 3 years, what you want your business to look like, and the big picture things. The business plan is the one that you're going to drill down when your investors and those people are looking for information, more details. That's what you're going to prepare for them. The Lean Canvas plan is the one that if you're moving fast and you're in a startup phase, I think you want to use that model to keep yourself going until you need to have that big business plan or that more traditional business plan. And that envelope, back of the envelope, that's where ideas come from. That's where they start. And every good idea probably starts on the back of an envelope or a napkin somewhere. So I think that's a really key thing, and it's important. I just want to share with you, this is one I've used in lots of presentations, so it may not be new to you, but the Christopher Columbus Award. And Christopher Columbus, basically, this award's given out because Christopher Columbus didn't know where he was going. He didn't know where he was when he got there. He didn't know where he had been. And it didn't matter because he did it on federal funding. So some of you are probably have been able to get federal funding to a certain point, but there's a point when that's going to end. And you need to have a really good plan of thinking about beyond where I'm going. Like don't just use your plan for getting a bunch of money and there I'm going, then I'm all set. The people aren't going to lend you the money if you don't have a plan. You need to have a well thought out plan. And I believe that it's the key to success. I think planning puts you in the driver's seat, and you don't become part of someone else's plan when you have your own plan. And whether that's in your personal life or in your business life, if you want to get somewhere and achieve the goals in your business, you need to have your own plan and be driving that plan forward. So I would like to invite you to, before we go to the questions, just invite you to come to the next week, Business Planning 2, which is future-proof your business planning. So we're going to dive into more of these details about the entrepreneur plan, the customer plan, the product plan, the marketing plan, sales plan, the growth and scale plan. And, really that's the core of a business plan. So hope to see you next Wednesday at 12 noon. And I think, Emily, we're back to questions here.
Thanks, Gary. I did put the registration link for next week's webinar in the chat. So if you haven't already registered, you can click on that directly there. And if you do have any questions, please submit them now, and we have quite a few minutes to answer anything live here for myself or Gary. One that I did want to answer was, we had a question on if this was being recorded, and the answer is yes. We do record all of our webinars and then post them to our YouTube channel. So if you wanted to rewatch this or share it with somebody who couldn't make it today, it will be available on YouTube afterwards. So sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, has anybody identified any challenges or those kind of things?
So we got one of the challenges that you asked at the beginning. I think we got some people who came in a bit late, but one major challenge someone submitted was developing the product idea that will drive the business plan.
Yeah, and that is a pretty big challenge, but it's kind of a catch-22 or circle you're always doing. Like you're developing your idea, and then you're sort of driving your business plan out of that. Now, testing your ideas, I'm not sure whether you're talking about finding ideas or developing the idea, but planning, part of the planning process or developing your idea is that you're testing things. And it's kind of a planning process. Like you're taking the concept that you have, you're planning it out the best that you know, you're testing it in the marketplace, you're getting the feedback, then you're coming back and you're making adjustments to that product or that idea based on what you learn. And that starts to formulate the basis of the plan going forward. And you need to, you want to get out of your head a little bit here with planning and not go so far in that you're just thinking that this is a great idea, or even just listening to your family telling you this is a great idea, or your friends. You want to get it out and test it in the marketplace. The only true test of a product's success or validation is when people actually can give you money for that product. And you have to sort of try things and prototypes and test different things. And that's what leads to information that starts to build your business and your plan and your product and your idea going forward. And I hope that's captured a little bit of it there. But if you have any more questions, I'd be glad, email me at mha.gary@gmail.com, and I'm glad to discuss things with you more. So.
Yep, we have quite a few questions here. Someone else did submit a challenge they're dealing with right now. And the challenge they have is trying to make the perfect business plan and struggling with the difference between done versus perfect.
Well, I don't think there's ever a perfect business plan. I think you're best to go with what you have. test it with different people. Like, are there people that you can take your plan to and run it by them? For example, that's what I would do for people is look at the business plan and I point out, well, these are things that maybe I think you could improve upon, or this is what you're trying to achieve. I think these are areas you need to do. But if you struggle and wait over that business plan forever, like things are changing and they're dynamic in the world. And I think it's best that you put the plan out there that you get feedback. It's where you get a bit of a tough skin when you're doing these things, that you take the criticism and you build it into making your plan better.
Okay, we have two questions here that are both about like market research. So the first one here is, where can I look for reputable statistics and data on my target market?
Well, there's if you want like basically reputable data, like you can go to Statistics Canada and look there. If you want to get detailed down into what you're looking for into your specific product or market, you probably have to start paying for that data. And you can do that at Statistics Canada if they have that information. That depends if it's available, but you'll have to pay for it. There's other groups like AC Nielsen and Mitel that you can buy data from, and they have much more important close data on what's going on in a particular marketplace, because they monitor the stuff that goes through the grocery stores and they have information there. Now, the caveat to that is that information is sometimes a little bit skewed too, because grocery stores, for example, in Canada, we have some pretty big private label brands like Our Compliments or President's Choice, and those usually don't get shared because they're proprietary. They don't get shared in that data. So it can kind of sometimes skew what the market is. Now, the other thing I'd like to point out is that I see this in business planning a lot, is that people will look at, oh, that market is $100 million a year, and all I got to do is get like this little percentage of that market and I'm going to do fine. But what I will tell you, if that market's $100 million of sales in a year, somebody's already selling into that market, and they're not going to give that market up very easily. So really the focus that you need to have is, okay, this market is this big, but how am I going to get my share of that market? And that is the key when somebody is looking at your plan. People don't get really impressed at the fact that, oh, that's a $100 million market or a $10 million market or whatever it is. What they're impressed at is when you can show how you're going to get your market share out of that $10 million or $100 million market. And that is just not a matter of showing up with a product. That is a matter of, that's what your business plan is going to lay out. That's where you're going to connect all the dots and the pieces to make it look like it's going to work for you.
Yep. Okay, we have another question here, which I'm realizing actually is probably more targeted towards me, but it's the, in the initial part of market research to see if things can be produced and sold, how do you find out more about the code, rules, and restrictions without feeling defeated? For example, if you are not a procedures person in the production of a safe apple cider. And I feel you on this one. The government regulations are very heavy to get through, and it sometimes is hard to find exactly what you're looking for and what's applicable to you. To find out more about food safety, it's important having somebody who's really familiar with your product and those regulations. So if you don't have somebody in your team, a lot of people hire a consultant who will help them with that part. And Perennia does have a food safety team that's available. You can hire them for helping you with your planning or like helping you with the regulations. And they're also available through our agriculture funding program, so that those services are potentially covered. And then there are also consultants out there who they do that full time. So I definitely recommend looking into somebody who specializes in that if you're feeling a bit defeated with it, even if it's just a little bit of guidance and mentoring. But they're definitely not the most fun reading material to go through.
And one of the things that I would add in there, and I'm not trying to take away from Emily's work or anything, but find some other people in business, like mentors that have been through some of this before. And some of those people can help you navigate things a little bit, or they'll give you some of their experiences and the things that they've learned along the way. And they can save you a lot of time. And they're probably not going to cost you very much, maybe a lunch or something like that. Sometimes, as you're building relationships, and to build relationships with some of these people, it's attending industry events and joining industry associations. And those are all really valuable networking things. Like if Perennia has events that often that are when we could meet together. But I think, there's probably opportunities to do those things virtually now, where we can meet and we can talk about things and people can share things and you can ask questions. Like one of the things I always found in associations, which was really interesting, I learned this, probably 40 years ago when I first belonged to associations in the industries that I was working in, is that, you sort of, you're put in a situation where you're with all the people that are in the industry, whether big or small, and you're all kind of there talking together, and people are in an environment where they like to share things. So what you find is the people that have experiences and have been there for some time are quite willing to share with new people their experiences and help them get on the right path. And it's a great way to, don't be afraid to ask questions. And don't feel stupid about asking questions, because these questions, like some of these regulations and rules, are complicated. And I'm sure Emily will, she's figured a lot of these things out, but they stump her probably even sometimes too, because there's so many different things to look at. So I would suggest that don't be scared to ask questions. Talk to people and ask them where maybe they may have a connection. They can make an introduction to you somewhere, and that may be helpful.
Absolutely. Thanks, Gary. We have one more question here. It's probably the last one, but if there's anything else burning on your mind, submit it and we'll try to get to it. So the last question here, Gary, is it sounds like business plans are constantly evolving. How often should you be revisiting your business plan? Weekly, monthly, etc.?
Well, I don't think you have to be doing it weekly or monthly, but what I would suggest is that when you prepare a business plan, is that you actually don't stick it in the drawer or put it on the shelf and it collects dust. Is you pull it out and you look at it maybe weekly or monthly or whatever, and just to see how you're doing against things. I think annually it's a good exercise to go and review your plan and update it as necessary. Once you have a plan in place, it's not nearly the work updating and keeping it going forward. But it's important that you use it as a monitoring tool or a measuring stick or some milestones out there. And I think if weekly is what you need to do to look at it to see if I'm on track, that's fine. As you get more comfortable with your business, you probably won't look at it nearly as much, but maybe quarterly is what you need to look at and just say, did we achieve what we thought we would in this first quarter? Because if you wait to the end of the year, it's too late to go back and change things, in the short term. But if you're monitoring things as you're going forward, okay, this isn't working. We need to revise the plan, halfway through or a quarter of the way through the year. And you can make a difference still. You can make a change still in that year instead of waiting till the end. So I would say that, it is a dynamic document. They're always changing the marketplace and everything's changing around you. Your inputs are changing, your product's probably changing as well. So you should revisit it, minimum every year. But I think, monthly or maybe quarterly probably would be even, probably simpler. I don't think you have to do it weekly or daily or whatever, but things are changing pretty quickly in some markets. And that's why people, the planning vision used to be, you need a 3 to 5 year business plan. And people now, if you stretch out to 3 years, that's probably pushing it, because things are going to change a lot. And I hate to use this example, but I can still remember when the fax machine came into business, and I can remember when the first cell phone came in and all these things, and those things just totally change everything, right? So
for sure. We do have one more question here, which I do want to get to, but to be respectful of anybody has to go at one. Thank you for coming. Please come next week. It will be Gary and I again doing a part 2 of this. So if you do have some other questions, we might be even addressing them next week. So hopefully we'll see you there. And
Ministers.
into the screen, the Minister of Agricultural's conference this year has moved online as well. So they're also doing a 5-part webinar series, and that's also on Perennia's website. Here's just the list of the titles and dates if you're interested. And then this webinar series is also an 8-part series. We're doing them every Wednesday at noon Atlantic time. So Gary and I are here at the first 2, and then we have a variety of speakers for the other 6. So be sure to check that out or reach out to me for any questions. Okay, so the last question here, and then we'll head out, is what is the best way to know my business plan or vision will work in the real world? Whom should I reach out to know if it will work, or the best way to approach people who have already established a business to get feedback?
Well, I think that it's an interesting question. Like it's not a guess. Like what you really want to do is put your plan together of what you're thinking about. I think it doesn't hurt to run by any other businesses that you know that are interested and able to do it. Lots of business advisors. There's a lot of people through government that have seen a lot of things over the years. I think you can run them by as well. But ultimately, the one that the vision and the plan of what you're doing has to run by is the customer. So you need to be able to, get your product to a prototype that you can get out and in front of a customer, whether it's if you're food, maybe you're at a farmer's market or you're out testing with people and get feedback. You're not going to create a plan that is perfect the first time, and you're not going to create a product that's perfect the first time. So it's this dynamic process that I'm talking about. Is that you're going to be doing things, you're testing, you're getting some feedback, you're going back, you're making some changes, and whether that's a product or your business plan, I think that's what you need to look at. If you research out opportunities really well, like I think your vision about what the market is and what those opportunities are, again, you can talk to all the people that you want, and you're getting their opinion, but it's the customer that you really need to get the best opinion from and the best result if you're going to make some significant, have a significant, success in your business.
Thanks, Gary.
Okay.
So thank you all for coming today, and thanks, Gary, to presenting, and we hope to see you next week. I will be following up later today with the resources or handouts from today. And that's it. So thank you for coming.
Thank you, Emily. Thanks, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye.